You have probably felt it. You decide to break a bad habit or commit to 3 hours of deep work. You grit your teeth and rely on sheer willpower. But by Tuesday, you are right back where you started. That exhaustion is not a flaw in your discipline. It comes down to basic physiology. The part of your brain responsible for conscious focus, the prefrontal cortex, requires a massive amount of energy to operate. But deep near the brain's core lies the basal ganglia. It functions like an automatic transmission, using very little energy to run our habitual routines. Because your prefrontal cortex gets overwhelmed easily, your brain actively protects it. Repeated actions are pushed down into the basal ganglia to run on autopilot, freeing up cognitive resources. When you struggle to alter a routine, your brain is actually working exactly as designed. It prefers the highly efficient autopilot. Changing that default requires outsmarting the system. For decades, it was widely accepted in science that once you reached adulthood, your neural circuits were fixed, the paths were paved, and you were stuck with the brain you had. But the adult brain is highly adaptable. Through a property called neuroplasticity, your brain continuously forms new connections, weakens old ones, and physically alters its own structure based on what you do. You can intentionally trigger structural changes through self-directed neuroplasticity. By focusing your attention in specific ways, you can systematically alter brain circuitry in just a few weeks. Look at this PET scan, a medical imaging technique used to observe metabolic processes. We can literally see physical changes in human neural structure following focused mental training. We do not have to fight our biology. By leveraging how the brain rewires itself, we become the active architects of our own minds. The process starts with a mechanism known as long-term potentiation. When neurons fire together repeatedly, the synapses between them get stronger. The more you focus on a specific action or thought, the more efficient that neural pathway becomes. Neuroscientists relate this to a physics principle called the quantum Zeno effect. Simply put, holding your attention on a specific thought keeps the corresponding brain circuit stable and alive, locking it in place. This brings us to our first rewiring practice, daily mindful awareness. By practicing mindfulness, you actively train your brain to notice when it has slipped into a distracted autopilot, and you manually bring your focus back. Doing this daily forces those specific focus circuits to stay open and eventually hardwire themselves into your default routine. Where you deliberately place your attention, you literally forge new physical connections. You can accelerate that structural growth with our second practice, performing high-intensity interval training or aerobic exercise right before you tackle a complex cognitive task. Physical exertion triggers a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Acting as a biological fertilizer, it binds to synapses and sparks rapid neural growth. This creates a temporary window of plasticity. After exercise, your hyper-adaptable brain easily absorbs information and forges lasting memories. Exercise serves as a mechanical tool to physically prime your brain for high-level cognitive achievement. Even with a primed brain, we contend with a natural negativity bias. This graphic charts the downward spiral. Perceiving a stressor initiates an appraisal process, leading directly to attentional narrowing and negative emotions, creating a self-perpetuating loop of fearful focus. To counter this biological default, our third practice is dedicating a few minutes every day to positive imagery or loving-kindness meditation. Psychologists call this the broaden and build theory. By intentionally generating positive emotions, you counteract the stress response. This physically alters affective brain circuitry, widening your scope of attention, increasing your open-mindedness, and building long-term emotional resilience. Positive thinking is a measurable neurological lever you can pull to reverse a downward spiral and force an upward trajectory of success. To sustain these practices, offload them to the basal ganglia's habit loop: cue, routine, and reward. With habit stacking, anchor new routines to existing cues, like morning coffee. Follow with a deliberate reward. This dopamine hit permanently stores the new neural map. Habit stacking transforms difficult, conscious effort into effortless, hardwired automaticity. You are not a victim of inherited mental loops, a negative bias, or an overwhelmed working memory. Your neural architecture is entirely adaptable. By combining focused attention, BDNF-releasing exercise, positive imagery, and strategic habit loops, you take the raw material of your neuroplastic brain and forge circuits optimized for success. When you deliberately control these physiological mechanisms, you stop fighting your biology and start collaborating with it. You have the power to architect your own mind. Subscribe to Rye Standard to learn more ways to master your psychology, and drop a comment below telling us the one rewiring habit you will start today to build your upward spiral.